Welcome to our next video where we're going to do parallel and transversal equations. Just like in the previous video, we are still dealing with transversal and parallel lines that have been cut and they've made obtuse and acute angles, but now instead of just having directly what the angle equals, we're going to have to actually solve for it. So what I still recommend is on every example, still identify what is acute and what is obtuse. So we used this color for our acute, and then this color for our obtuse. Perfect. So now let's go through this and look at what we have. We have 3x plus 7 and then 10x plus 17. Now, per definition, that is called same side interior because they are on the inside and they are on the same side of the transversal. So because of that, I know one of them is acute, one of them is obtuse, and by looking at it, I can see that this is my obtuse angle and the other is my acute angle. Now we do have to remember that when we have things that are not the same, we have to do something with the number 180. So because I'm going to run out of room, I'm going to come over here to my separate sheet of paper where I already wrote out that different equations will be set up as angle 1 plus angle 2 equals 180. See how that 180 comes back? That is because the sum of these two angles will be 180 degrees because they are on the same transversal line. So with that being said, we're going to set up our equation. We're going to do angle 1. We'll just call that our acute angle, 3x plus 7. Now we're combining it with that 10x, so then plus 10x plus 17 equals 180 degrees. Now I can set it up to solve for x. Remember the strategy we use for that is don't call me after midnight, where D stands for distribute. Well, there is no distribution because I have no parentheses being multiplied by anything. C is combined like terms, which I have. I have a 3x and a 10x, and then a positive 7 and a positive 17. They have to be on the same side, and they are, so it's going to create 13x plus 24 equals 180 degrees. Done with that. I do not have a variable to move because there's not one on either side of the equal sign. I do have a constant to add or subtract. I need to subtract over this 24. So 13x equals 156. If you want to double check that, you're always more than welcome. 156. Done with that. Now we're going to multiply or divide, and in this case we would divide because that is the inverse operation. X would equal, and then just go ahead and double check, and I believe it is 13. Oh, I put 12. My goodness, I knew that wasn't right. 12. There we go. My bad. There we go. 12. So now I know that in this equation, x is going to equal 12. Now let's go see if that's the answer they want. So first, they did want us to write the equation. We already did that right here, so we are good on that part. And then it says, what is the value of x? Well, x is 12. And then it says, what is the angle measures? So to get the angle measures, now that I know what x equals, I don't have to necessarily leave it as 3x plus 7. I can actually solve for what that angle equals. So we're going to do the acute angle first. So we'll have 3x plus 7. But instead of 3 being multiplied by x, 3 can actually be multiplied by 12 plus 7. So then 3 parentheses 12 plus 7. It's going to give me a number 43 degrees. And that is the actual degree measure for every acute angle in that specific problem. Now I can come over here and do the same thing for the obtuse. I would have 10x plus 17, 10 times 12 plus 17. Notice all I'm doing is replacing the x with what we got when we solved for x, and you get 137 degrees. Now, to double check yourself, you can take 137 plus 43, and you get 180, which is what the sum of the two angles should be. So it is correct, 43 degrees for the acute angles and 137 degrees for the obtuse angles. So that is just one way of actually solving for your angle measures, is using your strategy, don't call me after midnight, and going through there. So now let's go look at the next one. I'm gonna move this paper to the side. Now, when you're looking at your transversals, I highly recommend you turn them to where the parallel lines are going horizontally. So that way you can clearly see, oh, okay, this angle is acute because it's small, but then this one looks larger, so it's obtuse. Okay, so I'm gonna have another situation like I did before. So we're gonna come back to our paper here. And we're going to set up our equation. 7x minus 9 plus 11x minus 9 equals 180 degrees. Whenever the angles are different, you must set them equal to 180. Now, yes, I can make you solve this using Don't Call Me After Midnight. That's how I taught you originally, so why not? But I also taught you a strategy to help you with your equations if you don't feel confident enough. I'd rather you feel confident in what you're doing and get it right. So the other trick you can use is your y equals trick. Okay, now y equals is a button on your calculator that is right here. You press it, and this is where you can input in equations. Remember that the left side of the equal sign is your y1, and the right side is your y2. So I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to type this in real quick. As you can see, I have y1 is 7x minus 9 plus 11x minus 9, and then my y2 is 180. Now, I hope that y'all are screaming at me from whatever you're watching this on saying, Miss B, change your windows. Yes, please make sure you adjust your windows. Now, because I have this 180 degrees, yes, I typically go to negative and positive 100s, but because of that 180 being closer to 200, I'm going to put it at negative and positive 200. Please, please, please make sure you're only changing the minimum and maximums and nothing else. Just x min, x max, y min, y max. Once you have that set, you do not have to do it again. Second trace 5. Wait until it says first curve. If you go any sooner, it'll give you an error. So first curve, hit enter 3 times. 1, 2, 3. X equals 11. I'm sure a bunch of you are like, Miss B, why didn't you just start with that? Because, y'all, I need to make sure you understand why this works. Then we can go to the trick. So now I have x equals 11. I do not need that equation anymore. Ooh, wrong color. X is equal to 11. So now I'm able to actually substitute in and get my angle measures. I want you to pause the video and attempt this part without me. Okay, hopefully you got 68 degrees and 112 degrees, and I did go ahead and add those back together so that you could see that they do sum to 180. So that is 2 really good examples of what happens when the equations are different, therefore they had to be equal to 180, versus this next one where my parallels are horizontal, so that's good, and if you'll notice, they are both acute. So hopefully you remember that whenever your angles are acute, or not even just acute, but whenever they are the same, you no longer have to deal with the 180 because now you're talking about angles that are the same. So you get to set the equations up as so. So we're going to take one of the angles, which we'll do the first one we see, which is negative 8x plus 8. Now because they are the same, I get to incorporate the equal sign, the other angle, negative 6x plus 20. Perfect. Now, the solving process is a lot easier because in class, of course, I'm going to ask y'all, which method would you prefer? Would you prefer to use this method or this method? And I can tell you 99% of you are going to scream this method. So we're going to use our calculator trick over here where our left side is y1 and our right side is y2. Perfect. So now take the time and I want you to go type that in and come back when you're ready. Perfect. So now, as you can see, I do have them written in, but notice there's no equals 180. That is because you're not dealing with the 180 degrees here. You have two acute angles in this example. Therefore, you get to just set them equal to each other, meaning that the left side is one expression, the right side is the other. Now I can go into my second trace 5. You do not have to adjust your windows once you've already adjusted them. Unless you reset your calculator, then you have to go through the adjusting process again. Second trace 5, let it think. It'll say first curve when it's ready. Hit enter 3 times, and there it is, x equals -6. Perfect. So I'm going to leave that calculator screen right there. We're going to come back to our paper here and write that the value of x is x equals -6. And then because the angles are the same, it doesn't matter which one you plug into because you should get the same answer. -8x plus 8. Gonna plug that in, -8 times -6 plus 8. Whenever you multiply that all out and add, you will get an answer of 56 degrees, and you would get the same thing for the other angle. The other thing I want to point out is that when the angles are the same, your calculator will also tell you what answer you should get as the degree measure. That only works if the angles are the same. In this case, they are. Therefore, 56 degrees is the correct angle measure. Now moving on to the bottom 3, let me do a quick reset real quick, meaning I will have to adjust my windows here in a bit. Moving on to this one, I want to talk about the equation real quick. Remember to turn it to where you can see what kind of angles you are dealing with. And in this case, I have 2 acute angles again. So we can actually set that equation up on this paper together. Because they are the same, it is going to be one equation on one side equals the other expression on the other. Then I would set that up to solve. I'm going to leave this solving part for you. Going on to the next one, I can see, oh, this one is obtuse. This one is obtuse. Therefore, because they are the same, they don't have to necessarily be acute. They can both be obtuse as well. I can do 11x plus 34 equals 15x minus 2. And then again, because they're the same, I get to say that they're equal. But then this last one, let me go ahead and turn it sideways so that way I can see that this one is acute and this one is obtuse, meaning that I am going to have 2 different angles showing I'm going to bring in that 180 degrees. So now to do so, we have to be very specific with how we write this. So because the angles are different, I'm going to have the equals 180. This line is not going to be big enough, so I'm going to write a little bit above it. It's going to be -5x plus 32 plus, and then notice this is a -20 right here. So I'm going to leave that in parentheses, -20x plus 48 now equals 180 degrees. And those parentheses do not change anything. The only reason I had to do that is because of this negative sign. So now the solving process. You can solve these using your y equals in your calculator, but if you did do a reset, you're gonna have to reset your windows. Pause the video and attempt. I want you to find the value of x and the angle measures. Hopefully those weren't too difficult for you, especially now that you have your calculator trick. Just always remember that this side is your y1 and this side is your y2. The only problem that should have looked Sorry about that. The only problem that should have looked a little bit different is this equation over here, where your entire y1 side would have been both expressions and your y2 would have been the 180. But other than that, you should have gotten all of these values of x's and these angle measures. So if you need any further explanation on that, please leave me a comment and I would be happy to put an example in there for you. So other than that, you have a great day. Bye.